I love that phrase.
I didn't even know it was a
Yeah,
phrase. It's just like you
yeah, yeah.
threw two fucking words together.
It's kind of like an exclamation from like real old crusty guys sitting in a gentleman's club. And that, my dear Wilson, is absolute horse feathers. You know, that sort of thing.
It makes sense in that context, actually.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of My name's John. His name is Andy. Real life is so hard. We hide in the stars. That's where our heads are. My head and your heart. More on that another time, perhaps. But first, we have a track to listen to, and because it's Friday, oh yes, it is. We have a lovely little ditty recommended by one of our wonderful viewers. So in this case, it is Rommel Munuz 7957. And they dropped a comment in the Ride Vapor Trail episode. A lovely little tune. Check it out if you haven't already. And they suggested a number of tracks by this band, of which I'm familiar with all of them. And that band is Sonic Youth.
Oh,
And of the ones that were available, I selected Wildflower Soul. And as you've guessed it, you sharp bunch, it won't be me listening to it. It will be Andy. So another Sonic Youth track.
yeah, lucky me. I look forward very much to checking this out. So appreciate the recommendation and you sort of picking among the several that we had offered up. I hope you chose wisely to paraphrase Indiana Jones. But yeah, let me go off and give this thing a listen, and I'll come back and let y'all know what I made of it. Interesting. There's like this cacophony of sound that starts things off, and just when you've about had enough, at least from my perspective, it clears. There's like this dust settling, or storm receding kind of feeling as these very discernible and clear guitar chords scatter any remnants of that cacophony to kick things off. And like the amount of fuzz that was coming off that really reminded me of like what you get from the a big muff distortion pedal, which is very chunky in its fuzzy sound. So I don't know, just a guess there, but that's kind of like what it sounded like to me. um Interesting dual motifs on those two guitars that really were quite abrasive. But I'm sure that all of that was likely an attempt at symbolism, or anytime you get these visuals, like I mentioned, of like a storm receding or dust settling, you there has to be some intent behind that, right? Like, what was the point of doing that if that's not what they're aiming for? So yeah, that's just my first impression of hearing this opening salvo. Let's see where it goes from here.
Sing your children's song. Sing your child love, love is on. And see the child eyes, eyes are old. And oh,
Yeah, I think I also just heard a phaser pedal in there or something very akin to it. You heard that That's my best impression. Probably not that great, but my point still stands. I think there is some sort of phaser on that second guitar. Um, that is another effect that's being used that's really interesting sounding as well. I'm digging it. A lot of allusions to childhood or childlike things. Um, Interesting. Wonder where we go from here.
There's magic growing, see the child lights spinning gold. Every day, girl, they blow away, leaves falling to the water, wildflowers for you today. Sing your birthday blues.
Interesting. I've caught like something about the passing of days, then the falling of leaves, and now your birthday blues. So it sounds like we've started off talking about childhood or maybe memories from your childhood. And I'm only catching bits and pieces, but to go from that opening couple of lines to now things that to me, passing days, falling leaves, birthday blues, suggest the passing of time, perhaps the aging process. And it sounds like maybe this idea of trying to hold on to youth or something. I don't know. This is real time, me just throwing shit at the wall based on what I think I'm catching from a lyrical standpoint. So I'll try not to get too bogged down in that, but I do really find these lyrical narratives to be interesting oftentimes. So either way, also the drums, really lovely, just simple kind of cymbal work that's helping with like to keep the time. I know it's nothing flashy, but there is beauty in that subtlety and simplicity.
Sing your wildlife, wildflowers bloom. They will not forget you. And down they go.
I mentioned the timekeeping and then it switches up, of course.
To sleep so slow away. They grow, they go. I'll wait all day. I'll wait all day. I'll wait.
Yeah. It's increasing. Swell. There we go. Oh shit, okay. Oh yeah. Oh, a gentle landing. I really love that. I love how the guitars and the drums really kind of subtly it didn't just hit you, right? It kind of like unfolded all of this sound. And it took its time to get to where it got to, and then it kind of like gently landed. And just that idea of playing with dynamics, and the subtlety of dynamics. You're not hitting the listener over the head with "here's a big change." They grew into it and evolved into it, and that felt right. I know that sounds weird or it's nondescript, but it just felt right how it started and how we got to now this part where we are. And at 3:34 of a 9:04 song, my intuition is telling me that there's going to be a lot of things like this playing with sound dynamics and things like that. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope I'm right. This is really pretty. Hi-hat work. Simple but pretty. That guitar. Here we go. Loving the drums. Ooh. Some interesting chord. Interesting stuff here. There it is. There it is. All right, that was quite the callback. That last bit where that cacophony from very early in the song comes. It's sort of elongated, this bit of and then again as the dust settles and the storm recedes, those chords come through. Yeah, that it did what I thought it was going to do, which is play with dynamics and this idea of like swelling and building, and all of this stuff to fly off the tracks and then to bring us back into that lovely chord progression that pierces through all that tumult. Um, that part won me over, and by that part, I mean, what was it? The last 3.5 minutes. I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the journey to get to those 3.5 minutes, but the joy of experiencing those 3.5 minutes supersedes that. But it also kind of underscores why the first bit of the song was so important. But yeah, that whole like minute 4, 5, and 6 were great, and 7. Up until we reach that calamitous bit, which I'm not against. I understand it's serving a purpose in the song, but the journey to get to it again for the second time, those aforementioned few minutes were fucking awesome. I mean, the standout obviously are the guitars and how they're working together, and the different things that they're doing. But for me, just the drum work, dancing between cymbals and these lovely rolls, and all of the drummers work to keep everything moving and tight. Really, that was the kind of cherry on top, if you will. But yeah, let's push through the rest of this and see where we end up.
Sing the child love is on. Sing the child
Or that bass.
Sing the child lights are gold. Childlike wildflower soul.
Sorry, I lulled into that experience. The ending crept up on me, even though it was quite evident that it was happening. Yeah, that was a really, really fun listen. I loved every bit of it. The way I don't want to beat this word into the ground, but the dynamics of this song were fabulous. The commingling of the guitars, the kind of precision of the drums, fabulous. I believe that's Thurston Moore providing us the vocals. Really liked his voice in this. Got lost in the meaning of it, got lost in the sauce. I picked up on a couple things here and there, but I'm not really sure if I have cohesive, understanding of the meaning of the song. But there is some like, I don't know, kind of sad nostalgia to some of the words that I caught, and even in his delivery. But yeah, I really liked this song a lot, and I'm going to be interested to hear what John has to say about it. So let's get back to him.
Horse feathers. He's back. So you've had a listen to Sonic Youth,
Yeah.
Wildflower Soul. I love that phrase.
I didn't even know it was a phrase. It's just like you threw two fucking words together.
It's kind of like an exclamation from like real old crusty guys sitting in a gentleman's club. And that, my dear Wilson, is absolute horse feathers. That sort of thing.
It makes sense in that context, actually.
It's like something that doesn't really exist. It's not reality. It's bullshit. Horse feathers. Anyway, you've had to listen to Wildflower Soul. Concentrate. Sonic Youth. What do you reckon?
Okay, let me get the idea of winged horses with feathers out of my head here. Yeah, this was
the Titans, yeah.
I think you referred to it as a little ditty before I went off and listened to it.
Yes.
Boy, did you lie.
Yes.
Yeah, 9+ minutes. But luckily, it was 9+ minutes of really enjoyable stuff that did a lot of um different things to keep those 9 minutes fresh wholly through. So I actually really enjoyed it. Upon pressing play, I'm instantly greeted with some like fuzz buzz feedback from the guitar amp, which is clearly a like an affected guitar played through an amp. So it sounded like it had this there's this distortion pedal called a Big Muff, which is a pretty suggestive name, but I swear that's its name. And it had that kind of
Super
like
Fuzz Big Muff.
what'd you say?
Super Fuzz Big Muff.
Yes.
Mud honey.
Yes, that's exactly the kind of level of distortion that it sounded like that I was getting from this guitar. So I thought that was really interesting. And coming up playing in the late 90s and early 2000s, everybody wanted a Big Muff for their, their distortion. So I played with plenty of guys who had that. And so one of the guitars is playing this kind of like winding up dissonant motif, and the other one is playing this like winding down dissonant motif, and it's really calamitous, and it's a lot. And I mean, I'm wincing while it's playing. I know I am. I could feel it. But it's interesting. And then there's also like anyway, the smoke clears, I should say, and through this dust settling or whatever tortured metaphor you want to use, emerges this really lovely chord progression, which evokes all kinds of visuals, right? Like again, storms receding and all this bullshit. So it feels like that serves a purpose, and I don't of that what that purpose is. I don't know, but I felt like it did because of that energy that it gave, this clearing effect, this clarity. And so in come these really pretty guitar chords, and then the other guitar kind of joins in, and it has this phaser effect on it, or some sort of flanger, because you can kind of hear the warped noises and affectation on it, which was really nice. And probably from the moment go, really, this is just yet another indicator of how interesting these guitars are going to play with one another throughout the rest of this adventure, this 9 minute adventure we're now embarked on. So at this point that I'm digesting all of this, Thurston Moore, I'm assuming, is who's singing the song, comes in, and he's well into his verse, and I'm catching bits and pieces. There's an awful lot of allusion to children, or this idea of being a child. So it sort of see like what's perceived through a child's eyes, but then the lyrics seem to suggest the passage of time, with this sort of mention of, I think he mentioned days by days or something, and then like leaves falling, and then birthdays, which are all these kind of like symbols or landmark events in the aging process, or the passage of time. So I thought that was kind of interesting too. I didn't piece together a cohesive narrative based on that, but I just thought it was an interesting juxtaposition to start with these allusions to childhood, and then this almost, to me, seemingly somber realization of the passage of time and the aging process, I guess. That's kind of where it stops for me, though, from a lyrical, like ingesting standpoint, because the song then starts doing what the song does from here, from a sonic music standpoint, and that's where my attention went to this point. Also,
Yeah.
because Thurston takes like a fucking 7 minute break in the middle of this thing or whatever, so it's kind of like that gets pushed to the back burner. So also, I should mention at this point, I'm not getting very much from the bass and the drums. The rhythm section has been fairly subdued throughout. There is some really nice, crisp, but ultimately very simple cymbal work that's happening throughout this, which is nice, and it's like metronomic in nature. It's just sort of like keeping time as it's supposed to do. But lo and behold, just as I start to like convey that feeling, or and sort of recognize that, there is this shift in the tempo after Thurston Moore delivers the line, "They will not forget you," I think. And the guitar suddenly, not suddenly, subtly, begins to build as they sweep through these affected chord progressions. And then sort of, I think he sings something about how he'll wait. And that progression continues as soon as the other plays this sort of like higher motif that's kind of coupled with it, and the two complement one another really well. That's sort of on brand for this song. The drums really kick off during this portion as well. And the more they play, the more I'm enjoying them. They're actually really starting to steal when the music kicks off. The drums steal the spotlight from the guitars for me, because maybe it's because it's such a stark contrast to what they were doing before, whereas the guitar is this ever-present thing throughout, no matter what the song is doing. But just think the emergence of the drums is what really captivates me and adds all the meat on the bones. So because you're really just enjoying the ride, like this light touches on the ride, and then all of a sudden you're getting great rolls and the bass drum is involved. So yeah, I really really loved that. There are, again, like I mentioned, these beautiful fills and splashes that dance across the soundscape until everything kind of comes to somewhat of abrupt but gentle landing around the 3:31 mark. And I think it's at this point where I realize there's a shitload of time left, and they sort of just showed their hand a little bit in that they're going to be playing with a lot of sound dynamics and deconstruction, reconstruction, swelling, and all that kind of sonic chicanery that we love. So I'm like, all right, I kind of have an idea of where we're going. So we go back into this beautiful guitar work, working together to create this soothing motif, while the drums fall back into this click track roll of simply but effectively keeping the beat on the hi-hat this time. And then things gently swell again as the instruments slowly begin to expand in sound. But again, this falls back just before the 5 minute mark. It's pretty obvious now, given the lack of vocals, that we're gonna probably go through something again, and they're gonna continue to jam and toy with these dynamics. And the band spends the 5th and 6th minute doing exactly what I assumed. And it's sounding great. All of this slow building and swelling of sound is really sounding great. I love the fuzzy, dissonant guitar commingling with the other guitar that has, as the song grows, and it kind of explodes as we are progressing into the 7th minute of the track. The bottom of all this kind of falls out around the 717 mark as the guitar starts shooting out this angular, winding dissonance, very similar to the beginning, if not the same as the beginning. This musical tumult comes to an end, and again, as the smoke clears and the storm recedes and the metaphors are tortured, those chords come back in, those really lovely chords that have this calming effect, again, coupled with this tasteful splashing on the cymbals, very light. And around the 8:11 mark, the drums shuffle back into a proper beat, and Moore begins to finally sing again for the first time in what now feels like ages. And he sings what I think are child lights. The other guitar plays these sonic oddities, which has been sort of its calling card throughout a lot of portions of the song, in the background, as the drums gently focus on the ride cymbal. And the stray rap of a tom or bass drum is, comes and goes. And then more dismounts on the line: "Sing Your Child Life, Wildflower Soul." Something to that effect. So the song kind of has this nostalgic but sad kind of feel to it, especially from Thurston Moore's perspective and his vocal delivery. And kind of like even that line, "Sing Your Child Life, Wildflower Soul," almost seems like a send off to a eulogy or something like that. So that I thought it was really pretty, but there is this air of somberness or sadness to the whole shebang bang. So yeah, it was a great listen, rich with some really beautiful and thoughtful musical choices throughout it. And that 5 to 8 minute mark of the track is really what sold me on it as a whole. Now, you couldn't get there without what preceded it, so that gives me some reverence for that portion. But nonetheless, that 5 to 8 minute was just great. I love the dynamics in it. I think this is my favorite by them that we've done. If I'm being honest, I think it's because of playing with all the dynamics in it. So yeah, tell me more about the track, if you would, John.
Certainly, certainly. So, before I begin, we have listened to previously Schizophrenia on Into the Music, Teenage Riot on Into the Music, and Dirty Boots on this channel. I've already created a playlist, which this song will be added to. And so we talk at length about the band and other bits and pieces, and sort of certain legends and parts of it. So you can go and check out all the info out in those episodes. And it saves me waffling on about it again. So, my two penneth worth before we start into the lesson part of the episode. I of the tracks that Romo Munez 7957 suggested, I can't remember them now because I sort of cleared them out and just left Wildflower Soul. But I know another one was definitely Female Mechanic Now on Duty. And I can't remember. I think there was three from this album, one from another album. Of the Sonic Youth canon, the tracks you've listened to are from what I consider their top three albums. Sister, Daydream Nation, and Goo. And then you have a second tier, which I would put Evil, Dirty, and this album on. It's like, next best, and then there's others, but it's just my opinion. And I this is a sort of album of the ones after Dirty. This is the one I listen to the most. And I love this track, and I love the sort of construction of it. I like the sentiment behind it as well. I love the restraint, really, because a decade before they would have gone batshit crazy. There'd have been all sorts of crap going on. With this, it's just really subtle. For Sonic Youth, anyway. It's really nice and restrained, so I think it shows a bit of growth. And considering some of the quotes I got and stuff, that all ties in with it. So, Thousand Leaves is the album. There, it's the 10th studio album if you don't count the Whitey album, which they call themselves Chicone Youth, which most people don't, by Sonic Youth, and it was released in May 1998. So what happened was, after Goo and particularly Dirty and signing to Geffen, celebrity abounds, and they actually headlined Lollapalooza in 1995. And when they finished, they took all the dirty, filthy lucre that they got from that, and they built themselves their own studio called Echo Canyon in Murray Street, name of one of their albums, in Lower Manhattan. And this album was the first album they recorded there. And so produced some interesting results. Just to recap the personnel first, it's the classic lineup: Thurston Moore, guitars, vocals; Kim Gordon, guitar, bass, vocals; Lee Ronaldo, guitar, vocals; and Steve Shelley on drums. Much missed when he leaves the band. So there's a period of 3 years between their previous album, Washing Machine, and this album. It's the longest gap in between albums in Sonic Youth's career at the time. Thurston Moore explained that the band needed a break, noting they'd been touring non-stop for 16 years. He said, "We're having children, we're getting older. Let's just cool out a little bit and build this workshop. Go that way, work that route," or route, as you guys would say. So you can sort of get an idea. And what they did was, because Thousand Leaves was the first album which they recorded in their own studio, they had a lot more time and freedom to work on it because they didn't have studio costs as such that were clocking up, according to the record label. So they basically just jammed and worked on stuff all over the place. As a result, the songs evolved unevenly and were recorded from quite an early stage of development. You got different versions, and some of them they kept. They were almost like demos, which is one of the criticisms of the album by the music press. According to Lee Ronaldo, the album is, in quotes, a reflection of where we were at the time. We weren't into making anything concise. We were just playing what we felt like playing. We really didn't feel like what we needed to be doing was producing another record like Goo. So the title of this album was inspired by Mr. Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. According to Thurston Moore, the same way he improvises with images and words, we improvise with sounds and notes. That's one way of putting it. He also attributed the style of the album to the fact that the band were getting older, commentating, "You also become much more involved with your thoughts about life experience in general. Having children is incredible in that way." So the album A Thousand Leaves, it got to number 85 in the US Billboard 200 and number 38 in the UK albums chart. The single lead track on it, Sunday, um, reached number 72 in the UK singles chart. It was actually originally recorded for Richard Linklater's 1997 film Suburbia, which has actually got a really interesting soundtrack. There's some very interesting stuff on there. And then they re-recorded it for this album version. Yeah, in terms of the critics, it's really interesting. So in Village Voice, that Robert Christgau, who thinks so much of himself, he said that Thousand Leaves was a mature and beautiful record, commenting, "It's the music of a daydream nation old enough to treasure whatever time it finds on its hands." Where a decade ago, Sonic Youth plunged and plodded, drunk on the forward notion of the van they were stuck in, here they wander at will, dazzled by sunshine, greenery, hoarfrost, it's the name of one of the tracks, and machines that go squish in the night. He would later name it one of the 10 best records of the 1990s. So, fan. The Wire, they named the album their record of the year in its end of year critics poll. All Music described the album as the band's most challenging and satisfied record in years, and praised its quiet guitars and unpredictable twists, which kept the lengthy songs captivating. Spin criticised Kim Gordon's weak singing and forced guitar playing on Controller Sexism, which is the opening track, and I probably agree with that.
Yeah.
But also on Female Mechanic Now on Duty and The Ineffable Me. Basically anything she sang and they didn't like. But nevertheless, they judged the continually of inventive fretboard effects of Moore and Ronaldo, which sparkle gold-plated adornments that cut open and irritate the album at every turn.
Yeah.
Entertainment Weekly called the album, the record, the sort of thing that gives art rock a bad name. I mean, I think art rock gives art rock a bad name. Do you know what I mean? But anyway,
Hey, now.
Rolling Stone found the songs to be unnecessarily long and sluggish. Commented in the album, really does sound like a demo. 11 songs waiting for better organisation and cliche removal. The AV Club felt that the album rarely contained fully formed songs and the band should really start completing its ideas before recording them for posterity. And Orlando Weekly, another theme here, criticised Gordon's contrived and annoying vocal delivery, saying that many of the songs are merely lengthy feedback collages with pasted on vocals and gobs of art school pretension. Hello, they've been doing that for decades.
Yeah.
But admitted that the album came from hidden gems like Sunday and Wildflower Soul. So there you go. It can please some people.
Well, just based off of all of those that you've thrown at me, I think you did a pretty good job in selecting the song from the myriad we were offered, because it sounds like this one was, even by those who didn't like the album, one of the few shining stars on it. So yeah, great shout.
I mean, I'm a big fan of Sonic Youth and Kim Gordon, but sometimes she can really get on your nerves. And Thurston Moore's singing is, and Lee Ronaldo's as well, is pretty nice, pretty pleasant, for the most part. Anyway, the lyrics: sing your children's song, sing your love, child. Love is on. See through child eyes are old, and old is magic growing. See the child lights spinning gold. Everyday girl they blow away. Leaves falling to the water. Wild flowers for you today. Sing your birthday blues. Sing your wild light, wildflowers bloom. They will not forget you, and down they go to sleep so slow. Away they grow, they go. I wait all day. And he repeats that 4 times, and then we go into the instrumental break. Yep. And I've put in my notes, wonderful breakdown, bright guitars and interplay. So yeah, it's this classic bit where it breaks down and the kind of smoke clears and you just get these lovely bright guitars. Yes. And that's a real classic Sonic Youth move that you find in lots of their albums. But I mean, the interplay between Thurston Moore and Lee Ronaldo's guitars is lovely. And we've talked about this before in different styles. It's still working, the Dream Syndicate, television, people like that. Two guitarists interplay, and it just when it works well, it's really fabulous, and it really
Yes.
works. Hill. Steve Shelley's drumming is really cool on this as well. It definitely comes and goes in waves as well. It's subtle, and then it's expansive, and then it's subtle again. So yeah, really enjoyed all that. That goes on for 5-6 minutes, and then back to the sort of the outro. Sing your love child, love is on. Sing your child lights, sing your child lights. Lights are gold. Sing your child life, wildflower soul. So yeah, just talking about those guitars. There's an interesting little note here. Thurston Moore in Rolling Stone's 2004 edition of the 100 greatest guitarists of all time was ranked number 34,
Oh wow,
which is quite high up.
that is.
I was trying to look at the list, but it was taking a bloody age to load each page as you had to go in between. But I managed to get that number 39 was Brian May out of Queen.
Wow.
So he's higher up than that. And number 33, his mate Lee Ronaldo out of Sonic Youth as well. So he's one higher than first of all. That would piss him off. I really would. And they put this quote on both of their entries. When Sonic Youth burst onto New York's downtown scene in the early 80s, guitarists Thurston Moore and Lee Ronaldo got plenty of attention for attacking their axes with drumsticks and screwdrivers. But their real legacy can't be bought in a hardware store. It's the way they opened rock guitar up to the world of alternative tunings. On the band's masterpiece, 1988's Daydream Nation, Sonic Youth created their own language of strange and blissful guitar noise. Neither Moore nor Ronaldo is a master of technique, but they're both virtuoso soundsmiths, and the generation of alt rockers from Nirvana to Dashboard Confessional owes them big, which is fair enough. Yeah, and just to sort of tie a bow on this, in terms of the song itself, I mean, it's fairly, I don't think it's specific, but it is said that it's Thurston Moore's sort of ode to his daughter, Coco Haley Moore, that he had with Kim Gordon, who was born in 1994, so she'd have been about 4 years old at the time of this. And you can tell from the earlier quotes that obviously that's a big impact on where they are as a band. More like Sonic Middle Age than Sonic Youth.
Yeah, yeah,
That's just
yeah. It seemed like with that information, it was like like a when a kid's 4 years old, you're so short removed from them being an infant and a baby, and yet you can clearly see where they're going and how they're growing and how quickly time moves. And it sort of sounds like it's from that perspective too. Like, oh my God, can we just keep you here because you're growing so fast and so quick? And I don't know, that sentiment seems to shake out with the feeling I got from it. Almost like this sad to see you grow so quickly. I wish I could cherish these moments longer sort of mentality.
Yeah, and as just as a matter of interest, I didn't write any of this down actually, but I went to sort of Google Coco Moore. I think she's added the Gordon bit in now since her parents split. Um, and there's bits of articles on her, but most of them are like sort of 10 years old. And she's quite a private person, it seems. So some people described her as as a model. I think she did some modeling, but she wasn't a model. She definitely writes poetry. She's dabbled in music as well, as far as I can tell, but nothing. She's just been a sort of her own person, a bit creative and interesting, and that's cool. There was one interview with one magazine, and which I think one of her friends did, and she just came. I read it, sort of scan read it quickly, and she just came across as a fairly well-rounded person that was quite private. She said all her Instagram's private, and only certain people can see it. She doesn't blast to the world what she's doing, and no, good on her.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So that's really cool, and she does look like a perfect,
Like an amalgam.
putting together
Yeah.
of both of their faces, almost like if you computer generated it, she's got bits of him and her. Yeah, it's really quite amazing, really. It looks like something from a photo fit. It's just which is really cool as well. So there you go. So a nice little song about their kids.
Yeah, that's sweet.
You wouldn't have guessed that 10 years before. But, brilliant. So I'll just wrap things up. Thanks for listening to this, Andy. And I was also Rommel Munez 79.
Great shout.
5, 7, great shout. Yeah, this is a really nice tune. I listen to this album regular-ish, so yeah, but it's a great one to have on the channel, so I'm really chuffed, and it will be added to the playlist. So folks out there, tell us what you think. If you like this, do hit the like button with your sweaty paws, and drop some comments as well on what you think about this song, this album related to the others. I love Sonic Youth, one of my favorite bands. I don't go so much a bundle on their later stuff. It's still decent, but it didn't grab me the way that Sweet Period did. Although I did like their last one, The Eternal was a great album actually. So they left on high, I think. But yeah, tell us what you think. Drop some comments. I'd love to hear from you. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. And also remember, if you want a track to be featured on a Friday, drop a comment in any one of our episodes. We will add it to the list. We will then add the number the first thought of. We'll divide by our age and treble by our shoe size, and we'll come to a number when we will eventually listen to it. So it will happen. That being said, thanks again so much for watching, and we'll see all of you in the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.